So, you're an INTJ. Your mind is, without a doubt, your greatest asset. It's a powerful engine of logic and strategy, able to see patterns and future possibilities that most people can't even begin to imagine. You build these incredibly detailed models of the world. You have a 10-step plan before anyone else has even figured out step 1. And you have this deep, internal drive for competence that really should guarantee success. Then why do you feel so stuck? Why do so many brilliant INTJ, these supposed masterminds, find themselves stagnating in their careers, their relationships, and their personal lives? You can see the potential shimmering on the horizon, a version of you that is actualized and accomplished. Yet it feels like you're running in place, completely baffled by a mysterious and infuriating lack of progress. You might even watch others, people with arguably less intellectual horsepower, just fly past you. And a quiet, corrosive thought starts to creep in. I should be so much further along than I am. This feeling, this paradox of being a brilliant strategist trapped in a loop of inaction, is a silent epidemic among INTJ. It's the curse of the failed mastermind. In this video, we're not just going to talk about it. We're going to dissect it. We're going to treat your stagnation not as some personal failing, but as a system error. I'm going to reveal the 4 core system failures that cause most INTJ to get stuck, stopping them from achieving the growth they crave. And then, more importantly, I'm going to give you a clear, strategic, step-by-step blueprint to fix these errors and finally tap into the vast potential that you know is waiting inside you. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about learning to correctly operate the powerful machine that is your mind. Let's begin the diagnosis. To solve any problem, an INTJ first needs to understand it completely. Your frustration with being stuck isn't a sign that you're incompetent. It's a signal that your personal operating system has a few critical bugs. These aren't flaws in your character. They're the shadow side of your greatest strengths. Let's isolate them one by one. The first and most sneaky error is what I call the competency trap. It runs on a simple, flawed equation that so many INTJ subconsciously live by. Knowledge equals progress. You are absolute masters of acquiring knowledge. You read the books. You watch the documentaries. You deconstruct the theories. You build a vast library of information in your mind, becoming competent, even an expert, in a dozen different subjects. In your head, you've already simulated the project, built the business, and mastered the skill. The trap is believing this internal competence somehow translates to real-world achievement. You spend weeks, months, even years planning, researching, and optimizing. You might become one of the world's leading experts on starting an e-commerce business, knowing every platform and every marketing strategy. But the store never actually launches. You might have a revolutionary idea for a novel, with the world and characters mapped out in perfect detail, but the first chapter is never written. This isn't just regular procrastination, it's a specific INTJ flavor of it. The act of becoming competent feels like progress. It satisfies your logical side's desire for efficiency and your visionary side's desire for a perfect, complete picture. The problem? The real world is messy, imperfect, and frankly, doesn't care about your perfect plan. It only rewards action. The competency trap keeps you in the safe, predictable world of your mind, where you are an undisputed master, and stops you from entering the chaotic arena of reality, where true growth actually happens. You mistake the map for the territory, and because of that, you never start the journey. This leads us right into the second system error, the grand planning fallacy, which always ends in a state of chronic analysis paralysis. Your mind is a gift for strategic thinking. You don't just see the next step. You see the entire staircase, the landings, the final door, and the room beyond it. You want to create that one perfect, all-encompassing plan that accounts for every single possibility. You think, if I can just create a flawless system, execution will be easy. Here's the fallacy. No plan ever survives first contact with reality. And because you're so good at seeing potential problems, your planning phase becomes a minefield. For every single step in your plan, your intuition generates 5 ways it could fail. Your logic then demands you create a sub-plan to deal with each of those 5 points. That complexity just explodes, and it quickly becomes overwhelming. You find yourself researching endlessly, comparing tiny details, and trying to optimize for a future that hasn't even happened. The sheer volume of information creates a cognitive overload, and the whole system just freezes. That's analysis paralysis. It feels like you're being responsible and thorough, but what's really happening is you're stuck in a loop. The desire for a perfect plan isn't a feature, it's a bug, and it's driven by a deep-seated fear. A fear so powerful it leads to our next error. The fear of making a mistake, of executing a less-than-perfect plan, becomes so great that it's more comfortable to just stay in the planning stage forever. So you end up with a beautiful 100-page blueprint for a bridge that never gets built, while other people are already halfway across the river on a simple, rickety raft. Beneath the cool, confident, analytical exterior of almost every INTJ lies a caged titan, a secret, profound fear of failure. And this isn't the average person's fear. For you, it's existential. Your identity is deeply tangled up with your competence and your intelligence. So to fail isn't just to make a mistake. It feels like a final verdict that you are not as smart, not as capable, not as much of a mastermind as you believe you are. One misstep can feel like it invalidates your entire identity. This fear shows up as crippling perfectionism. The thought process becomes, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. You set impossibly high standards for yourself, and anything less than a flawless performance feels like a total catastrophe. This is exactly why you get stuck in the competency trap and analysis paralysis. They are defense mechanisms to protect you from the crushing weight of potential failure. As long as you're still planning or learning, you can't fail, right? This fear also poisons your relationship with mistakes. Instead of seeing errors as valuable data for course correction, a perspective your logical brain should love, you see them as personal attacks. You might obsess over a tiny mistake in a presentation for days, or abandon a project completely after one minor setback. This aversion to being wrong prevents you from doing the one thing that actually leads to mastery: trial, error, and iteration. The titan of your potential stays caged, not by outside forces, but by your own fear of letting it out and watching it stumble. Our final system error is maybe the most subtle and the most dangerous to your long-term happiness. I call it the wrong ladder syndrome. INTJs are ambitious and driven. That part of you focused on external achievement and efficiency sees all the ladders of the world: corporate, academic, financial, and it wants to climb them. And you are very, very good at climbing. The problem comes up when that quieter, more personal part of you, the part that deals with your feelings and values, is ignored. That's the part of you that asks, is this truly meaningful to me? Does this align with my core values? Is this authentic? So many INTJ, in their relentless pursuit of success, pour all their energy into climbing a ladder, only to get to the top and realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. They get the career, the salary, the status, and they feel completely hollow, unfulfilled, and baffled as to why. They logically achieved the goal, so where is the satisfaction? This is what happens when you prioritize the world's definition of success over your own need for meaning. You might spend years becoming a highly successful lawyer because it was a logical, prestigious path, all while the real you was starving for a life of independent research or creative problem-solving. This creates a deep, persistent feeling of stagnation, of being trapped in a life that looks great on paper but feels completely fake. The growth you achieve feels meaningless because it's not the growth your soul actually needs. And for an INTJ, growth without purpose is the ultimate failure. So let's recap the system errors. The competency trap, where learning feels like doing. The grand planning fallacy, where the perfect plan leads to no plan. The caged titan, where a fear of failure stops you from even trying. And the wrong ladder syndrome, where you achieve success without fulfillment. Does any of this sound familiar? Have you found yourself caught in one, or maybe all, of these loops? Let me know in the comments which one hits closest to home. It's important to identify the bug before we can deploy the fix. All right, take a second to let that sink in. Recognizing the pattern is the first critical step. If this breakdown is resonating with you and you're starting to see your own struggles in a new light, do me a favor and like this video. It tells me that this deep dive approach is helpful, and it helps other INTJ who are feeling stuck find this blueprint. Now that we've diagnosed the system errors, let's install the fixes. This is the how-to, the actionable blueprint you've been waiting for. We're not going to use feel-good platitudes here. We are going to implement 4 strategic protocols, each one designed specifically to counter one of the failure modes we just talked about. The competency trap keeps you stuck in your head. The fix is to force yourself out of it. We need to override the learn-then-do instinct with a do-to-learn protocol. I call this installing an action bias. It's about intentionally choosing imperfect action over more perfect knowledge. Here's how you do it. First, start thinking like a scientist, not a scholar. A scholar's goal is to know everything. A scientist's goal is to run experiments and gather data. Your new job isn't to become an expert in theory. It's to get out there and collect real-world data as fast as possible. Second, embrace the minimum viable product, MVP concept, and apply it to everything. Want to start an online business? Don't spend 6 months researching logos, building the perfect website, or comparing 20 different tools. Your MVP is to create the simplest version of your offer, a one-page landing page, a basic service description, or a simple product mock-up, and put it out into the world. It's going to be imperfect. That's the point. The data you get from that first rough version, how customers react, what they ask for, what actually converts, is worth more than 100 hours of planning. Third, use the 2-hour rule. For any new idea, you get 2 hours of research and planning. Tops. After that, you must take one small, physical, real-world action. If it's starting a business, that action is registering a domain name or calling one potential customer. If it's learning to code, it's writing your first Hello World program. This rule short-circuits the endless research loop and forces a tangible first step. Action, not knowledge, is what creates momentum. You're not abandoning your intellect. You're finally giving it what it needs: real-world results to analyze and improve. That giant, perfect plan is paralyzing you. The fix is to stop trying to plan the entire war and just focus on winning the next battle. We're going to borrow a concept from software development: agile sprints. An agile sprint is a short, fixed period of time where you get a specific, manageable amount of work done. For you, a sprint will be 2 weeks. Here's the protocol. First, take your huge, intimidating goal, like write a novel. For the next 2 weeks, your only goal is a tiny, concrete task. For example, write 500 words of Chapter 1. That's it. You are forbidden from thinking about Chapter 2, or the plot twist, or the marketing plan. For the next 14 days, your entire universe is just those 500 words. Second, at the end of the 2-week sprint, you do a sprint review. Look at what you did, the 500 words, and what you learned. Was it harder than you expected? Did a new idea pop up? You then use that data to plan your next 2-week sprint. Maybe the next one is edit the first 500 words and write 500 more. This approach does 3 powerful things for an INTJ. It breaks an overwhelming vision into non-threatening chunks. It creates a rapid feedback loop so you can adjust based on real work, not theory. And most importantly, it channels your love of systems and progress in a practical way. You're still building toward your grand vision, but you're doing it 1 brick at a time, with constant adjustments. You go from being a frozen architect to an active builder. The plan is no longer a perfect, static document. It's a living strategy built from the data of consistent action. The fear of failure is an emotional problem, but we're going to attack it with a logical framework. We have to reframe failure from a judgment on your identity to what it really is: data. This is the data-driven failure protocol. Your mind is a prediction engine. When you take an action, you're testing a hypothesis. If the action doesn't get the result you wanted, it's not a failure in the emotional sense. It's just a null result. The experiment produced data that proved the hypothesis wrong. That's it. And that data is incredibly valuable. Here's how you put this into practice. First, before you do anything risky, explicitly define your success metric and your learning metric. For example, if you're giving a presentation, the success metric might be, get the board to approve my project. But the more important learning metric could be, gather data on which arguments landed and which questions were the hardest. This way, even if you fail the success metric, you automatically succeed at the learning metric. You can't truly fail if your main goal is to learn. Second, start a failure resume. This is a document where you log your so-called failures. For each one, you list the action you took, the unexpected outcome, and most importantly, the data acquired and the next iteration. For example, failure. My first marketing email got a 0.1% click-through rate. Data acquired. Subject line was too generic. Call to action was unclear. Next iteration. A B-test, 2 new subject lines, and make the call to action button bigger and brighter. This practice systematically desensitizes you to the emotional sting of failure. It turns you from someone who is afraid of being wrong into a strategist who actively hunts for weak points to make the whole system stronger. You start to see that failure isn't the enemy of success. It's a critical part of the algorithm that produces it. The wrong ladder syndrome happens when your external actions aren't in sync with your internal values. The fix is to make the subconscious conscious. You need to run a systematic values audit to give your powerful planning brain the right target to aim for. Here's the 3-step protocol for your audit. Step 1. The peak experience analysis. List 5 to 7 moments in your life when you felt truly alive, engaged, and fulfilled. It doesn't matter how big or small. For each one, ask, what was I doing? What skills was I using? What was the core feeling? Look for patterns. Were you solving a complex problem? Creating something new? Helping someone understand something difficult? These patterns point directly to your core values. Step 2. The no list. Now list all the activities, tasks, and situations that consistently drain your energy and make you feel frustrated or dead inside. Being micromanaged, pointless meetings, repetitive, unchallenging tasks. Again, look for the underlying theme. This helps define your boundaries. There's a reason these things feel so wrong. Step 3. Synthesize and define your guiding principles. Based on your analysis from the first 2 steps, boil your findings down into 3 to 5 core guiding principles. These aren't goals. They are filters for making decisions. A principle might be, must involve solving complex, unstructured problems, or must allow for autonomous work, or must create something tangible and useful. Once you have these guiding principles, you use them as the main filter for every major decision you make. Before taking a new job, ask, does this align with at least 3 of my 5 principles? Before starting a new project, ask, is this a vehicle for my core values, or just a distraction? This values audit gives your powerful brain the right coordinates. It makes sure the ladder you're climbing with such focus is actually leading to a place you want to be. It aligns your ambition with your soul and prevents that soul-crushing stagnation that comes from achieving a success that means nothing to you. The journey of growth for an INTJ isn't about becoming someone else. It's not about suppressing your powerful intellect or abandoning your strategic nature. It's about upgrading your approach. We've dissected the 4 system errors that hold you back: the competency trap, the grand planning fallacy, the fear of failure, and the wrong ladder syndrome. And we've outlined a strategic blueprint to fix them. Installing an action bias, implementing agile sprints, reframing failure as data, and conducting a values audit. The feeling of stagnation you've been experiencing is not a life sentence. It is a diagnostic signal. It's your mind telling you that the current strategy isn't working and a shift is required. Your potential is immense, but potential without action is a form of torture, a constant reminder of a future that isn't being realized. Your task now is not to wait for motivation or for the perfect plan. Your task is to take one small, imperfect step today. Pick one protocol from this blueprint and implement it this week. Write one bad paragraph. Make one awkward sales call. Start your failure resume with a single entry. Engage with the world, gather your data, and iterate. This is how the mastermind finally moves from the world of thought to the world of reality. This is how you stop being a failed mastermind and start becoming the architect of your own deeply fulfilling life. The blueprint is in your hands. Now, go build. If this strategic breakdown was helpful, subscribe to the channel for more content designed to deconstruct the challenges of the analytical mind. And for your first action bias step, how about you share this video with one other person you think might be a failed mastermind in waiting? Let's start a conversation and help each other get unstuck. Thanks for watching.